Okay, hello everyone again. Hey, how's it going? How are we feeling? We got that kind of end of session, end of conference feel, haven't we? Yeah, we're all ready for it. Yeah, exactly. So, right now we have some very special awards because A World for Travel wanted to honour thought leaders in action. These are the pioneers. Companies and individuals have gone that extra mile to institute impactful, sustainable practices. So this is recognition of true thought leadership, really, which begins with understanding the challenges and finding fresh, inventive ways to change the paradigm and move away from the status quo. We all need to move away from the status quo. These guys are helping it, pushing it, really, to happen. And it's my great pleasure right now to introduce Professor Lee Miles from Bournemouth University, who will shed some light on our 6 categories. Actually, it's 5 categories, because if you were here yesterday, you saw that we announced the Resilience Award. It's won by James Thornton from Intrepid, and special mention to Bosnia and Herzegovina. But he will now tell us what was the criteria for these 5 awards. Thank you, Lee.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here today. I'm Professor Lee Miles. I'm a Professor of Crisis and Disaster Management. I'm also Deputy Dean of a business school. So I sort of crossed the divide in the way that Isabel Hill was talking about earlier on. And I wanted to really, I've got in this very short opening remarks, to really start with a theme, which is part of the conference really here has been about talking about the dark space, from the dark elements of how we make sustainability and deal with one of the fundamental questions of our time and act as an industry and in an important way moving forward. But the great thing is we're moving from the dark into the spotlight, into the pioneers and into the people who are making a difference over that time. So I just wanted to start really with 3 or 4 reflections and then move into the categorisations themselves. The first one, I wanted to take us back to the press release for the World for Travel from the discussions that have taken place here in this room over the last couple of days. And there were 2 or 3 important reflections that were made there and recommendations. The first is that sustainability should be a priority. It should be everywhere. And that, of course, is fundamentally important. But we also need to merge sustainability with safety and security. We not necessarily see it as one thing, but it's something that should merge across our capacity of what we do as both the public and the private sector. And some of the things we'll talk about with the awards today illustrate some of that ability to do that. But there were also 2 other themes that were mentioned here today. In an earlier session, it was talking about stop competing about sustainability, work together through collaboration. And one of the themes of the importance of these awards is they also show how collaboration can deliver now for the future and the way we move forward. And the final point that was mentioned only in the session just earlier, which is really about don't always think about competition between us all. Think about the social aspects. Don't leave the social aspects behind. And part of the great theme of these awards is that they were able to attract applications from both the business community, from social enterprises, from the high-level part of dealing with the sector as an entirety, all the way down and through to the ideas of working with villages and local communities. And that's really the pleasure of working in this space. But I leave you with, from those 4 reflections with really that sustainability should be holistic. And fundamentally, if it is holistic, it should not be siloed. And therefore, we should approach the awards not as siloed activities in which we've been recognised for one space, but see it as a community of excellence where we're working for us all. So I think that's important because if we think about sustainability and where we want to be, if we have true sustainability, if we move beyond that, then fundamentally we may be in a position where we don't need dedicated programs. We don't need dedicated accreditations for sustainability. The end of the journey, sometime in the future, is when it is so embedded in organisational activity itself that actually sustainability is part of responsible management and responsible activity. We move from sustainable management to responsible management with sustainability at its core. And that seems to be part of what we're trying to achieve here as part of that spotlight as we move forward. So what were the judges thinking about when they looked at these applications as they move forward? And I return to the idea that this is a recognition of thought leadership. The best ideas and the best ideas being brought forward into action in that space. If we're a long way from where we need to be, where sustainability and we've achieved the goals, these become the thought markers where success is being achieved now and we can look forward. So I think there was 3 or 4 important elements. The first is that when the judges were looking at these bids and these submissions, they were looking at the aims and objectives, what and why they were trying to do the things that they were trying to do. And really to take the best ideas and concepts in sustainable tourism and travel from wherever they are, from the lowest level of working with villages and micro-communities and microfinance to the highest level of CEOs and corporate responsibility. Because ideas, the best ideas, come from anywhere and from anyone. And that's an important element to it. The second element is really about the design and implementation. Were those submissions able to talk about not just the what and the why, but also the how? What is the best practice that is trying to be developed and how it could be implemented? And there the role of collaboration, of the scope of the ideas becomes quite important. And the final element really also was to notion really about the impact. If we've got great ideas and we're seeking to implement them, how far on the road are we to making them having an impactful element? And how innovative are they in terms of where that move forward? Now, in some submissions, this may not necessarily be the impact has been fully achieved now, but there's clear indications that this is a road of success that will be moved forward. So I want us to leave us with 2 major themes, really, before I talk about the awards. Firstly, one of the ideas of the awards is really we need to think about how we think about and how we term thought leadership, the big thoughts, into large, mindful actions in practice. How we move from the big things, the big thoughts, to the large, impactful actions. And the second, and something I alluded to in the discussion earlier, that we need to move away from transactional to transformational mindsets. And how we think about, we engage with that cooperation between the public and the private sector together. So, in the darkness of sustainability now, there is much work to be done. But there are beacons of light and large amounts of spotlighted activity that has gone on these platforms to show that there is real success being made. And we are on the road to success in the way that we move forward. So with that said, I now want to move on to really about the awards themselves. There were 6 areas where the awards were actually outlined, where submissions were attracted. The first was in the area of environmental impact. The second was in the area of climate change, noting the difference between environmental and climate change. Thirdly, the notion of technological prowess, where technology and technological elements may be fundamentally important for showing our movement to sustainability. Fourthly, economic advancement, where those ideas may be leading to discernible economic advantages. Fifthly, societal development. And finally, resilience. And the success of those 6 areas is shown by that there were over 60 submissions, and over 40 of those were shortlisted, which shows the quality of those submissions that are coming through in relation to that. They were impressive applications, and I think, from my understanding, the jury were really quite impressed by the level of that. And they went from the level of both large hotel chains and corporate entities down to social enterprises. And they also included representation from across the world, from partners working in South America, in Africa, in Europe, in North America, and in many parts of the world, let alone those working on global activities for their entire corporate chains or for the sector itself. So I think we're very privileged to be in a position where both the quality of these submissions were large and were very high. And they show the spread of the spotlight that is starting to develop in the industry as we move on the way forward. So I'm going to bring my point to a close here at 8 minutes or so with thanks. Thanks to the judges for their hard work and for what they've developed and the input that they put in. And also to the sponsors at the high level, in particular to Amadeus and AXA Insurance, that were very important, for example, in also the delivery of the awards themselves. and to all the sponsors that have been so important for these awards that move forward. So now we're going to hand over to the Master of Ceremony, who will have the great privilege of announcing the awards. But I can say, hand on heart, that this is a fundamentally important exercise where we move from the darkness into the spotlight. Thank you very much indeed.